So this is an explanation for PT26 game 1. So our variables for this game are F, G, H, and J, who they tell us are majors, and V, W, X, and Y, who are non-majors. And they are telling us that these students are being assigned to 4 laboratory benches numbered 1st through 4th. So we're going to have 4 benches numbered 1st through 4th. Each student is assigned to exactly 1 bench, and exactly 2 students are assigned to each bench. So we're just going to have 2 slots under each bench. Okay, so I'm just going to draw columns down so that we can stack all of our combinations. So we know that exactly 1 major is assigned to each bench. So if 1 major is assigned to each bench, that means we're splitting up F, G, H, and J across the 4 benches, meaning that the other spot in each bench must be taken up by a non-major. So each bench is going to have a major and a non-major. I'm going to try to write the majors to the left and the non-majors to the right to keep better track of which ones still need to be filled out. The next rule says F and J are assigned to consecutively numbered benches, so they're next to each other. Like if F is in 1, then J could be in 2. Frank being assigned to the lower numbered bench, so Frank is to the left of J. So F would be to the left of J. They're in consecutive benches. The next rule says F is assigned to the same bench as Victor. So let's see if we can squeeze in Victor here. Yep. So basically right next to this, right, you'll have J. And then you'll have some non-major going after J. So you'll have either V, W, X, or Y going with, or not V, sorry, you'll have either W, X, or Y going with J. Next, Frank is, we just did Frank assigned to the same bench as Victor. Gwen is not assigned to the same bench as Wanda. So G cannot go with W. So that's not going to happen. And that's all of our rules. Not too bad. Number 1, which one of the following could be the assignment of students to benches? So let's look at this rule first. We know F and V have to go together and J has to go in the bench right after them. So here we have F and V with J right next to them. B, we don't have F and V together, right? So we can cross out B. F and V with J right next to them. C is fine. F and V with J right next to them. We can cross out D because there's no J right next to where F and V are going. And then E, F and V with J right next to them, that works out. And our next rule that we can look at is that G and W can't go together. So G and W are going together in E, right? So we can cross out E for that reason. And the only other rule we really have is that M and N, there must be a major and a non-major in each bench. And we know that all of the majors are using letters from earlier in the alphabet, right? And all of the non-majors are using letters from later in the alphabet. So I'm just going to check to see if there's 2 letters together in a bench that are from the same half of the alphabet. So looking at A, we have one from before, after, earlier, later. A, X, and Y are both towards the end of the alphabet, right? So we can cross that out. X and Y are both non-majors, and you can't put them together. Otherwise, you don't have a major per bench. And so our correct answer has to be C. And so I'm going to write out that as a combination, H and W in bench 1, and then G and X in bench 2, F and V in bench 3, and then J and Y in bench 4. Okay, next question. So if Victor is assigned to bench 2, well, if Victor is in bench 2, we know F is in bench 2, right? Because of this rule over here, and that means J is going right afterwards. So if that's the case, And they're also telling us Wanda is assigned to bench 4. So let's put Wanda in bench 4. That means that Gwen can't go in bench 4, right? So the only other spot left for a major is in 1. So G has to go here. And the last, the letters that we have left, we know H has to go here, right? Because that's the only other major left. And then afterwards, the letters that we have left are X and Y, which have no rules associated to them. They're floaters. So X/Y, X and Y are always going to be interchangeable, meaning even for this past combination, you could substitute X for Y here and Y for X over here. Okay, so this is the scenario that they're talking about, and they're asking which one of the following must be true. So does Frank have to be assigned to bench 1? No, right? Here we have a situation where Frank is not assigned to bench 1. Does Gwen have to be assigned to bench 1? Yes, Gwen does have to be assigned to bench 1, right? Everything we wrote out had to be true, right? We filled out each space because that was the only place where that letter could go or where that letter had to go. So we know with confidence that G has to go first. Just to check out the rest of them, does H have to be assigned to bench 3? No, right? H never shows up in bench 3. Does X have to be assigned to bench 1? No, Y could be assigned to bench 1 instead, right? Similarly, Y is assigned to bench 3. No, X could be assigned there instead, right? So we can cross out D and E as well. So B is our answer for number 2. Number 3, if G and H are not assigned to consecutively numbered benches, which of the following must be true? So if G and H aren't consecutive, well, we have an example of that over here in this row, right? So let's take a look at that. They're asking what must be true. So let's see if something doesn't have to be true. Victor's assigned to bench 2. That could be a must be true thing. We don't know for sure, so I'm going to leave that open. Victor is assigned to bench 3. Definitely not a must be true thing, right? We have an example here where G and H aren't consecutive and Victor isn't assigned to bench 3, right? So we can cross off B. That's not a must be true thing. Wanda's assigned to bench 1, not necessarily, right? That's not a must be true thing because we have an example here where Wanda isn't assigned to bench 1. And then next is Wanda. Does it have to be true that Wanda is assigned to bench 3? No, right? Because we have an example where Wanda isn't. And then E is saying Wanda's assigned to bench 4. Maybe that's a must be true thing, right? We know that that can definitely happen. So now we have to differentiate between A and E. So let's try to come up with a different combination where G and H are far apart, so where they're not consecutively numbered. Let's see. Well, we could here switch H and G, right? And put H in 1 and G in 4th. So to keep G and H non-consecutive, to keep them far apart, you have to put something in between, right? And what's in between actually has to be this whole block. Because G and H are majors, if you try to put either F or J in between them, you end up having to put both of them in between since F and J are consecutive, right? So really, these are the only two possibilities. This row that we just made earlier where H is 4th and G is 1st, and this row that we're about to make where H is 1st and G goes 4th, right? So if H is 1st, well, we know that the middle has to stay the same because we said that this block, right, has to be here. So F, V, and then we know J has to be here. So we are going to end up putting W over here because, honestly, just because we don't want to put it with the G, right? We could also actually add the W here as well. But that in itself lets us eliminate E, right? Wanda doesn't have to be assigned to bench 4. We can move Wanda around. We can put Wanda in the 1st bench or the 3rd bench instead. So E is not correct. Victor has to be 2nd, right? That's actually our must be true thing here. And so that would be our answer for this one. A, Victor has to be assigned to bench 2. And the reason why is because we just talked about earlier, right, how F and V, to keep H and G apart, F and V and J, this whole block has to go in the middle, right? And if it's going in between them, it has to go with this being the F and V being under the second bench and J being under the third bench, meaning that V always goes second, right? So that's why that's the case. Next, we have this question where they're asking if Henry and Yvette are both assigned to bench 1. So if H and Y are both assigned to bench 1, oh, here we would have an H, right? Nope, I take that back. We would have VW. Oh, we had two W's here, right? Because W could go in either place. So if we put W here, for example, then we would have X/Y here and here. Okay, so if H and Y are assigned to bench 1, which of the following could be true? Well, here is an example actually where H and Y could be assigned to bench 1. Can Gwen be assigned to bench 3? Maybe, we don't know. Joanne bench 2, Wanda and bench 2, Wanda and bench 3. Hey, that can happen, right? Wanda and bench 3 can happen. So D would be our answer just based off of a past combination that we have. When H and Y go first, right? In this situation, we'd be putting X in fourth since we picked Y for first. W can indeed go on the third bench. So Wanda can be assigned to bench 3. So that would be our answer there. Number 5, if Gwen is assigned to bench 4 and Xavier is assigned to bench 3, then any of the following could be true except. So when they ask could be true except, they're asking for something that must be false. So let's see, they're giving us local rules and telling us that Gwen is assigned to bench 4 and X is assigned to bench 3. And they're asking us, hey, what must be false here? So we know that F and V are either going in the first column or the second column, meaning that F can't be third. Is that an option? No. So, okay, let's see. We can just try each one out. G is assigned to the same bench as Y. That doesn't seem particularly restrictive because X and Y are interchangeable, and that gives us plenty of space for F and then V and then J, and then we can just stick W here and put H here. So that works out. That's fine. I'm gonna move on to the next one. Can Henry be assigned to the same bench as Wanda? If we're putting H and W together, let's see. If H is going with W, we would have to put F and V over here and J over here so that we have a full bench left over for H to go with W. Does that work? Yes, right? We followed the F, V, and J rule where F and J are adjacent and F and V go together. G is not going with W, G would go with Y in this situation. That totally checks out, right? So let's try another one. We tried out A and B so far. Can H be with X? Well, that would mean that H is going on the third bench. How does that seem? That does not seem particularly restrictive because then you could have F and V here, J over here, and then have W with B with J so that G doesn't have J, and then Y would end up being here. So that's fine. That doesn't end up being an issue. So let's try the next one. Joanne is assigned to the same bench as Xavier. So if Joanne is assigned to the same bench as Xavier, that means F and V are going here, meaning that there's still plenty of space to keep G away from W, right? We can put H with W over here, and then that means that G would be with Y. So that's not an issue at all. That's actually the same exact combination we had earlier. So that definitely works. You can cross that out. That must mean E is our answer, right? J is assigned to the same bench as Y. So if J is assigned to the same bench as Y, J would be going second with Y, and then F and V would be going first. And that's because J and Y can't go third, right? Because then there's X is already there. And then this means that we would be putting, since we only have 4 non-majors and we're trying to keep them all apart, the only place where W can go is bench 4 with G, and we know that G and W can't go together, so that does not work, right? So E is something that can't be true, and the rest of them can. Next question. If Wanda is assigned to a lower numbered bench than is Joanne, so if Wanda comes before J at some point, that means that Wanda is either going in the first column or the second column, right? Then they're asking, hey, then the reason why is because before J, right, you need F and V, and so you need at least 2 columns, right? Like for these blocks, this block of letters to all come consecutively, you need at least 2 spaces, and if you're trying to put W before J, you're actually going to have to put W, there has to be at least a space in between them, right? So W can only go second or first at that point. And so because of that, we know we only have 2 situations, so I guess we can just draw both out just to go for it. We can have W be here or W be here. And in this situation, we're definitely going to have, in the second situation where W is going second, we're going to have, on the second bench, we're going to have F and V here and J over here. Let's see. They're asking where Henry has to go. So in this situation, we know G can't go with W, so G is going to go first, and Henry is going to go second, and then X/Y for the remaining spaces. So does Henry have to be a lower number than Frank? Maybe. Does Henry have to be a lower number than Gwen? No, right? Gwen can be lower than Henry. Does Henry have to be a lower number than Xavier? No, because we could put Xavier here in the first bench and put Y on the fourth bench. So C is out. A higher number bench than Victor, maybe, right? A higher number bench than Y, not necessarily, right? We can cross that out. That's not a must be true thing because Y could go here and X could go here, right? So H does not have to be on a higher number bench than Y necessarily. So now we have to differentiate between A and H. So let's see. Can we put H first in the first column with W? Because that's definitely happened before, right? So if that's the case, here is an example. Is there an example where W is before J? Our first row, right? Here's an example where W is showing up before J and H and W are together here. Does H have to be on a lower number bench than F? Sure. I mean, that can be true, but can H be higher? Does H have to be at a higher numbered bench than Victor? No, right? Here, Victor is higher than H. So we can definitely cross out D, meaning that A would be on our answer. If Wanda is assigned to a lower bench than Joanne, it turns out that Henry must be assigned to a lower bench than Frank. And that's true in this scenario and in this scenario. And I think that's the last question. Nope, one more question. Which one of the following could be the assignments for bench 2 and bench 4? So now we're considering this bench and this bench. Let me clear up some of my extra notations. Okay, so they're looking for this bench and this bench. G and X can happen, H and Y. Could we substitute? No, we can't here. Okay, let's just see. Let's erase some of these combinations and just try them out. So for the first one, A, they're saying, hey, can we have G and W go second and have H and Y go fourth? Well, the issue here with this is that you don't have space for F and J to come consecutively anymore, right? One of them is going to have to go first and the other one's going to have to go third. So this situation does not work. We can cross out A. B, can H and Y go second while having J and X go fourth? Well, let's see. If J and X are going fourth, F and V are going third, and that means that G has to go with W at the first bench, right? Which we know can't happen because of this rule, and so this situation does not work. So we can cross out this as well. B is gone. And then C, can J and V go in the second slot? Well, J can't go with V, right? Because F has to go with V, so we can immediately cross out C just for that reason. J and W going second. So if J and W are going second, that means we're putting F and V first. And then they're saying, hey, G and X are going fourth. So if G and X are going fourth, this seems like it could work out. H and Y would be going third. So we're following the FVJ rule that we have over here, and we're following the fact that G can't go with W, right? So this is a combination that works. D would be our answer, but let's try out E to see why E doesn't work. If J is going with X over here in the second column, and H is going with Y in the fourth column, that means we're going to have F and V over here, meaning that G has to go with W, right? G is going with W third, and we know that G and W can't go together, meaning that this combination never works. So our answer for question number 7 would be D. And that's the last question for this game.